What do we do about students when they arrive late at class? This is a conversation that came up at our teacher training there on Saturday. We were doing the start of teacher training, and it was really interesting to see the different approaches and to see different takes. And so I thought it might be something that we could chat about. So, what to do about students that turn up late? There was a couple of different approaches that people take. One is that they lock the door. Now, locking the door from a security point of view, that's all fine and dandy. We understand that. But from locking the door, as in closing the door, as in do not arrive late, do not come into my class late because it's disrespectful, blah, blah, etc., 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 is definitely an approach. Now, it's not an approach it's not my approach. And the reason that I am not in favor of that as an approach for me is because from my point of view, the people who arrive late may well be the people who need the class the most. It could be that you've just been run around like a blue arse fly for whatever period for, bringing someone to Billy to Jack and back again. And suddenly now you need to get to your class and you're running late. It could be that they have got so far and then there's been a traffic something or other, and then they've been sitting in the car completely stressed about that and getting late. From my perspective, I don't want to add more stress into people's bodies and into people's lives. So from my perspective, I say come. Come when you can, get yourself here, you better get into class. And when you leave, you will be in much better form and you'll be a much nicer person to be around. Plus, hopefully your whole stress levels will have dropped down. Now, obviously, if there's a security aspect to this, then you can't offer that. But if assuming that you can allow people into the class late, in my perspective, I always do. Another approach then is that if you know someone is coming and they're running late, is to pause the class and wait for that person to arrive. Again, this is an approach I don't agree with. The reason that I don't agree with that is a couple of things. Firstly, people have actually arrived on time. They have arrived on time, and that is your contract. Your contract with them is to start at 10 o'clock or to start at 8 o'clock or to start whatever, and to end whenever. If you wait for someone to arrive late, then what happens? Do you lose 5 minutes of the class? Do you lose 10 minutes of the class? Do you run the class over by 5 or 10 minutes? Again, all of these situations are not optimal because you have agreed to start at a particular time. You've agreed to offer this amount of an hour of yoga or 90 minutes of yoga or whatever, and you've agreed to end at a certain time. Running the class over late is not fair on everybody else in the room because you don't know what their situation is. You don't know whether they've got lifts to pick them up. You don't know whether they've paid for parking. You know nothing about what their next event is in their days. And nowadays, we don't have the capacity to really do that. So in my opinion, we should start on time and we should end on time. There. And the other thing is that the person who's arriving late knows they're late. They know they're late. So like if you start getting if you're in a habit of being late, starting late, then the whole thing is just going to escalate and get even worse. I used to go to a yoga class and it might start 20 minutes late because everybody knew it started late. So then people started arriving late for late, and the whole thing just snowballs. So from my perspective, my thing is to be clean, be crisp, start on time, end on time. Do what you can in the middle of the time and work with it. Another approach that people have is just do nothing. Just do nothing and ignore it, and hopefully it'll all work itself out. I'm not really in favor of that approach either. I'm not in favor of that approach because avoiding things that are potentially feel like a little bit of conflict in your body is just avoiding things. And I don't know that that honors and respects you, honors and respects the practice, honors and respects the students, all of the students who are both there and the students who are late. I'm not sure that is the optimal approach. I understand it's the easy approach, but I'm not sure it's the optimal approach. Another approach that I'm not in love with is challenging the person who arrives late and being sort of saying to them, and you may say it from the point of view of love and care, and you may be very kind in how you say it, but when someone has arrived late, they're typically already self-conscious. And then from my experience, if you challenge them at the end, if you say, please arrive on time or please honor whatever, or it's very confrontational. Even if that's not what is intended from you, it's what is received. And therefore, the chances of them returning to your class are pretty slim. Now, you might think that's great because they're always late, so that's fine. But again, from my perspective, if they are the person who's running late, they're probably the person who needs the class most. So I don't want to be the barrier to them getting the class. Hence, I wouldn't approach it in that way. And that doesn't mean that I don't look to do it in a different way. One of the ways, one of the ways that I do it is I hold my boundaries clean, and I work on my boundaries, and I work on energetically inviting in people to honor and respect my boundaries, and my boundaries are time is one of my boundaries. The other approach, the main thing though that I work with is compassion. So compassion, I think compassion is, for me, compassion is the key. So I always drop back to compassion. Where is the compassion and how can I work with compassion? What does compassion mean in this situation? Well, in this situation, the very first person you need to have compassion for, the very first person is yourself. Well, what the hell? I'm already there. You need compassion for yourself because all this stuff is going to come up for you. Whatever it is. So it could be that you're feeling insecure. You could be feeling like you don't know what to do. It could be that you're feeling angry. It could be that you're feeling disrespected. It could be that you're feeling upset. It could be that you're feeling frustrated. Whatever it is that comes up for you, recognizing that that is just an emotion that is visiting you. It is a visitor with a piece of information, and asking what that information is and then letting it go. But having compassion for whatever arises in you, and then potentially, hopefully, receiving the gift from it and not acting out of it, so that you can then be clean and clear to act from another place. So compassion for yourself and all that arises for you, number one. The second people to have compassion for are the people in the room. So you're doing all this beautiful work centering, and you're doing your whole pranayama, and it's all you've done all this work to bring them into stillness, and now there's going to be clash bang, no matter how quiet the person is that's coming in, no matter how quiet they are going to disturb the peace that you have just done all this work in creation. So having compassion for the people that are in the room and knowing that their zenness may be disturbed. So how exactly do you do that? It's not about making the other person wrong. It might be something like my approach. Again, it's only my approach. It's not necessarily right or wrong, but my approach is something like, I'm expecting another one or two people. They may or may not arrive. If they do arrive, let's see, can you hold your stillness and not be disturbed by them? I would say things like, let's have a little bit of compassion for them, because they're going to be really self-conscious coming in, and they're going to be trying their hardest to be quiet, and it's going to make them even noisier. So let's see if we can have some compassion for them and hold your own power. Don't give away your power by getting disturbed by what somebody else is doing. Can you do that? Here's a playground. It's an interesting playground. And how often does this happen out in life, that you're in this lovely Zen space and someone comes in, does something not relevant to you at all, nothing to do with you at all, not relevant to you at all, and yet takes you out of your Zenness. So here's a nice playground. Can we play and see what is it like to stay in your Zen and have compassion for the person who's arriving beside you and who's flustering around with their stuff? I think that's kind of cool, because that's real. And then, of course, the third person that you need to have compassion for is the person who arrives late. So how do you have compassion for the person who arrives late? Well, firstly, maybe if you've got mats, you might have it set out for them so that they don't need to do so much fussing when they arrive. Secondly, and always what I do is I make eye contact with them and I give them a big smile, like a big welcoming smile, because they're self-conscious and they know they're late, and you know how it is. When you're late, you can't get parking. When you're late, you can't do this. When you're late, you drop your mat on the way in. When you're late, you know how it is. All these things happen. So a big smile, huge, big welcoming smile. I don't speak to them, but with my face, I give them this beautiful welcoming smile so that they know that it's safe to come in. And I just continue the class because they also know that they're late. And then at some point, once they're sort of settled, I'll come up and I might just say to them very quietly, just take a second to land. And then I just continue on with the class. So they have the invitation to land in themselves, because again, you know how it is when you're late, because who hasn't been late? And then when they're ready, they join in. And that's it in terms of the class. There is an extra element though that I put in. And so that's how you deal with the incident at the time. But in terms of creating a space where this only happens as the exception rather than the rule. So it might be a situation where you've got someone who's coming late all the time. You might have a situation where where your boundaries are feeling a little bit frayed from other things going on in your life, or whatever is going on. How do we set those boundaries as a group? How do we as a group set those boundaries? And also knowing that the person who's there doesn't hear you talk about the fact that you want to honor and respect the people that are in the room. So you're going to start on time, end on time, and allow the person who's late to arrive. And that's another thing that I will do when we're waiting for someone, is I might say that, you know yourself how it is that someday you might be late. So I also let people know that they're welcome to come if they are late. But what I do then is maybe at the start of the block, maybe halfway, maybe a couple of weeks after the incident, or, you know, at some point through the course, or maybe a little welcome video at the start, you know, when people sign up for your classes. I set the boundaries. And the boundaries are these. The boundaries are the class starts on time and the class ends on time. The boundaries are you are welcome to arrive late. And if you do, I ask you to arrive on time. And should you be late, please keep coming. If you realize halfway here you're going to be late, please keep coming, because that's probably the day you need the class. And then what's more interesting than the actual start and end of that is this bigger picture. Looking, and I invite people to look at where do they give away their class? Where do they give away their piece? So when do they make other people more important? So when do they skip their yoga to bring their kid to their football because it's a final? When do they skip their yoga to meet their friend who has had a crisis? What is the level of crisis that is required for you to skip your yoga? Is it just that they're feeling sad? Or, you know, where is your boundary? When is it that you are late and not respecting and honoring yourself? Because, and I will talk about the fact that, you know, when you arrive late, it's very discombobulating. So you're not getting everything that you could get. Was it possible to leave the kid there 10 minutes early so you could be on time and that they could wait? Is it the kind of environment? Like, how old is the kid? Like, if they're 18, leave them 10 minutes early and arrive to your class on time. It's a no-brainer, you know? So where are we sacrificing? Where are we making another more important than ourselves? Where are we making another more important than ourselves? We are not more important than the other, but they are not more important than us. And so talking about how initially what we need to do is we need to use the other to support us look after ourselves. So it's like, do you feel better? Are you in better form? After your yoga class, are you a nicer person to be around? And talk about how if you haven't filled your cup, you've nothing to give. I talk about the idea, how many people have said to you, oh, my husband said to me, go back to yoga. You know, let's use those examples, you know, where our family knows that we feel better when we're doing yoga. And we are nicer to be around. We are more giving. We are more authentic to ourselves. We are more compassionate with ourselves and more compassionate with others. So the first step is looking after ourselves so that we can look after another. The second step is where we look after ourselves because we're equal, because we're not better, we're not worse, but we are as entitled and as it's important for us to look after ourselves as it is for us to look after another. So it's as important that we go to our yoga class as it is that we drop our kid to the train, for example, when we're equal. The third level is that we become the leading lady in our own story, in our own movie. Quote from The Holiday. That we become the leading lady in our own movie, and therefore that we really own and take and honor and respect ourselves. So now we turn up to class on time because we are worth it, not because we're afraid of disturbing the class, not out of respect for the teacher. And yes, those two things are present, but it's because we honor ourselves and we want to turn up to class on time. We want to make sure we get to our classes because we matter. See the difference? I think that's a really powerful place. And if we can support our students arrive to that place, nothing else matters. I mean, is that just not the magic of the work? And is the idea of the beauty of how life gives us all these opportunities. So arriving late to class gives us this whole opportunity to have this beautiful, deeper, wonderful teaching on compassion and on self-worth. That's my take on it. Let me know what yours are. You might have a completely different approach to the whole thing. Let me know.